I had a job loss. A company I worked for, the startup, they shut down. And I had this real low period. And that's what,
Welcome back to the Art of Connecting podcast. This is your host here, Hayden Fike, back with another episode. And today we have Rob DuBroc on with us. Rob is a self-storage investor, and how we got connected is through Ben Call. So Ben is one of my mentors and people that I've learned a lot of things from through the Action Academy. And when we were in Costa Rica, he told me that he was starting this thing called Self Storage Academy with Rob. And so I went and stalked Rob on Instagram, reached out to him, and a few months later, here we are together recording a podcast. How are you doing today, Rob?
hey, I'm doing awesome. Hayden, how are you?
I am fantastic, fighting off a little bit of a cold. So if I sound a little stuffy, that's what's going on. But we got to keep going here, got to keep pushing.
Got to get the vitamin D, man, and hydrate.
That's right. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get rolling. I would love for you to just tell me a little bit about who Rob is, what you love to do, what your life looks like.
Yeah, Hayden, I'm Rob DuBroc. I'm 38 and I live in Kansas. I think a lot of people think of Wizard of Oz when they think of Kansas, but man, I live on some acreage. It's beautiful. We love it here. It's a great place to raise kids. And I moved to Kansas in 2000. So I've been here over 20 years. Um, started, let's see, where I'm at today, I'm married. I've got twin boys. They're 6 years old. They love to do everything outdoors. They love shooting BB guns, riding dirt bikes. They race BMX. They are all boy. There's no question about it. They love wearing camouflage. Like, I'm living the dream as far as got a couple knuckleheads pushing me to stay young and outside. I love that. And my wife, I don't know how long we've been together, but we've been married for 7, 8 years now. And it feels like she had a spirit of adventure like I did. So before kids and before we were married, we just traveled all the time. We loved experiencing new things. We did that outside of what our jobs would allow. So I think when I was transitioning jobs in the corporate world, which is where I was at when I met her, my negotiation wasn't necessarily on salary as to it was pay me fair market rate and I want 4 weeks vacation so I can have a lot of fun, have plenty of time to do stuff outside of just the weekend. I did start off in the corporate world. I worked for an aerospace company and then I moved into software, managed software development teams. And I really enjoyed that when I was working for a startup on the software side. I had a job loss. A company I worked for, the startup, they shut down. And I had this real low period. And that's what ended up taking a job that I didn't like so much. And that began this whole soul sucking, oh my gosh, I have to show up and go through the motions. I've got to do something else. So that might have been my epiphany to, okay, this corporate path and living for the weekend and living for my vacation and travel, there's got to be something more, right? That'll give me the time freedom that I was looking for.
I love that because my journey was similar. Not really. I got fired instead of making that decision for me. But I was in the corporate world and I was so excited because this job that I was going to be going into was going to give me 4 weeks PTO. And then after 5 years, you get 5. And after I think 10 years, you get 6 weeks PTO. I was like, that's incredible. 6 weeks PTO. What would I even do with all that? And then I started to realize, like, wow, these spreadsheets will suck the soul out of you. Like staring at Excel and you start like drawing the box because you're like, get bored. You ever do that?
Yeah. So I don't want to completely discount the corporate experience because I learned a lot. I was exposed to a lot. As far as like long term being a cog in the machine, I'm blessed to have been able to pop out of it. But man, I learned so much. I learned about creating automated reports and about managing, like leading teams without authority. So there's a lot of soft skills that were developed over that period of time. Everybody loves to hate on the W-2, but ultimately, if you're in the right position, you're learning and earning. And when it's right, you can pop out, you can earn money and be smart with your money, which I wasn't. I like to spend money and travel and have toys and just live it to the max. When I was in my W-2, I always had a side hustle because we just wanted to do more stuff and was doing the points hacking and getting my wife on as a Southwest companion and just what can we do to go balls to the walls and have a good time and use all of our resources to the max. Kids came along. I had that job loss where the startup shut down, and that was the punch to the face. Liquidated my 401k to float the family because I was too proud to ask for any help or figure it out. I was too proud to take jobs that I thought were beneath me. So, like, some of those experiences were really, like, really humbling, and then settling for a job that ultimately wasn't a good fit. It was like a boring old product with the team dynamic wasn't too awesome. Yeah, I think all of those experiences build, and then some of those things can be looked at like as blessings, right? When I had this unsure of where money was going to come from, and hey, we got a car. Actually, when I was jobless, we had this like fancy like Denali that my wife was driving, and the motor blew on it. It was like 2 years old. We were like, man, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. But that was just I think that was one of those times that's like crafted on your journey. Hey, dude, you need to be you need to be smarter. You
Yeah.
can't just be spending it. You got a family to support now. So yeah, I didn't, that was just there was a lot of learning in that journey. So the W2 journey, and a lot of it's funny, it comes back full circle. The first job I had was accounts receivable, like doing collections calls. And it was now we're coming back to, and I've got team members doing collections calls, and I understand what that whole scenario is like, and yeah, and how important it is.
So let's talk about when you knew you were ready to get out. What did you start doing?
Oh man.
What sparked
So I
that
got my
fire?
real estate license while I was still working a job because I thought, hey, this is going to be freedom. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be in control of my time. I'm going to be in control of everything. I don't want a boss. The thing with being a real estate agent, and you know what, it's a hard job, right? And it takes a special person with patience, great people skills, somebody that can bite their tongue, somebody that can keep a deal together. I mean, ultimately, that's what the realtors are getting paid for, is to soften the motions on both sides and keep the deal together so that both parties can get what they want. Um, I quickly found out that wasn't being my own boss. Now you have however many transactions you've got going on, they're all your boss and they all want you to jump at the same time. Um, and quite honestly, it took a year before anybody took me serious. I actually bought my first fix and flip because I was like calling for sale by owners and expired. They came across a for sale by owner that was like way too cheap. And so I ended up buying that myself. And that's really what got things going. And I made good money on that. But I thought I was going to get into apartment investing. I read a book about apartment investing, and I learned about also, like with fix and flip, you buy a house, you fix it, you flip it, hopefully you make money. You don't always make money. Now you've got a nut, right? Like that first one, I made 70-ish grand. So now what do I got to do? Okay, that's my money to go buy the next one, right? I don't have any money to eat with or pay my bills with. So you're constantly feeding the machine. So I'd read this book, Multifamily Millions by, I think it was Dave Lindahl. And it was talking about one, explain financing and made that seem like something I could take down because they're not looking at me and my DTI, they're looking at the property. Okay, cool. If I get a property that performs, that's financeable, and I can come up with the down payment. The big aha was the forced appreciation concept with cap rates. And so I thought, okay, I did this fix and flip house. I'll keep doing these. I'll save up a big enough nut to go take down an apartment complex. One, mitigate my risk across multiple units. But two, as people move out, I can update and take a rent from $700 to $1,200, or it really like force appreciate the property. Long play, maybe buy one, two, three apartment complexes. But my world hadn't been opened up to you could have as many properties as long as you just keep going and feel like doing it. So I think that was that started to push me in that direction. But then I met, so I was calling apartment owners at this point, and I, and I had a camper and I was storing it at a new boat and RV storage place here locally. And I called and asked, who owns this type of thing? And the lady that answered the phone, her name's Christine. She said, oh, my husband and I do. Oh, interesting. I wasn't sure if it was a big investment group, and I was just completely clueless. Oh no, yeah, no, they live in Newton, Kansas, and they own one up here in Kansas City, which is about 3 hours from where they live. And I had to go, okay, I'm looking to buy apartment complexes. I was just curious who owned this kind of thing. So her husband called me back And I wasn't expecting a call from him, but he said, "Hey, Rob, this is Jason Mitchell. I was calling because I heard that you were interested in buying some apartment complexes. I have five and I'd love to sell them, but I can only sell you one per year." So that led to me going down and touring these apartment complexes, which were 3 hours from my house. I brought a friend of mine with me and we walked all the apartment complexes, and Jason was very honest about the business. He told me, like, basically how he fixed things, which apartment he found a dead body in, all the stories about nasty evictions, unit fires, insurance claims, HVAC systems that he had just rigged together so that they would continue operating. And there's been there was some maintenance that would be pretty expensive if I had it because he was just a guy who's able to get it done. I think at the time he might have had 400 doors total, which is a lot. It was just at the end of our tours, I asked him, I said, "So why are you selling all of this? You've built an amazing portfolio. This is like my dream." And I think it was something like, "Hey, after 14 years owning all this stuff, I'm just tired of dealing with the people. I'm selling all my residential and I'm going all in on storage." For me, take away from that, when we got back in my truck and started driving home, Ellie, my buddy that was with me, he's like, "So what do you think? Are you going to buy one of these or what was your takeaway?" And I go, "I'm going to start looking into storage because I think we have an opportunity to just skip level here and stop and not deal with the problems that he was lamenting on." And he just didn't have a filter. He was so honest. And I appreciated that about him. And so we didn't make a deal. That actually came around. I didn't buy it. He sold those apartments to someone else, but he handed me a deal in that same town, a storage deal, because it was too small for him. So that was an interesting one. We've since become good friends, and he's more of a mentor. But it's interesting because you can mentor up and mentor down. Because as I'm chasing some of my squirrels and operational efficiencies, and we'll go out and have a steak or a drink, and he'll go, "Oh shoot, you know what? I'm going to borrow that. I'm going to let you do the research, and I'm going to steal that from you." So it's really become like a very dynamic relationship. So Kelly and I, will go out and get steaks, and Kelly and I've invested together. But that was really the path to getting that in my head that I wanted storage.
Mm.
So
So what does your portfolio look like today?
I've got 6 facilities. I've got 3 in Kansas, 2 in Missouri, 1 in Ohio. It's mostly storage, 1,000 units, around 1,000 units total. And then 14 place RV park, which came with some storage. So with the RV park, you're going to own an RV park. It's hard to manage a small one, just like with storage. If it's super small, it doesn't pay enough to support having a staff run it. It's an oddball thing to run. So that came with storage. That's fine. And then I ended up with a few retail spaces and warehouse space that again came with a different storage facility. The focus has been self storage, mini storage, but if something else is attached, if it still makes sense, then I
Very nice. So it sounds like you fell into storage. I fell into storage as well. It was not like an intentional thing. I was actually looking for multifamily too. I wanted to do a 12 to 24 unit and ended up getting a phone call and got to be a part of a storage deal. So it's very similar to my story as far as I didn't know hardly anything about storage. I'd heard Ben talk about it before and I was like, I don't really want to get into storage because I don't want to support people's hoarding habit. And that was like a block that kept me from getting into that. And then the opportunity presented itself to where I couldn't say no, and I was like, "I'll give it a shot." And I've been so thankful that I did because it's just there's a lot of really great people in storage, and it's such an interesting industry. It's a mix of a business and real estate. I feel like it's not just real estate, it's a business attached to it.
yeah, the big thing that I think gets me going with storage is that the ability to scale is directly correlated to the advances in technology and some of these companies that have made it easier for you to manage 1,000 units, 5,000 units, 10,000 units, or 100 units. You can use the same software. Ultimately, you might upgrade levels of software as you go along the journey and add on integrations. And with scale, you have the ability to grow a real business. Whereas as a mom and pop operating 20,000 square feet in BFE, Kansas, is not able to live off the income because it's not one storage facility that's paying a mortgage. is not going to support you. This isn't get rich quick thing. There are some huge opportunities and value add plays, but they're not a gimme. It doesn't just happen overnight. You have to have a strategy behind it. And then with scale, it's ridiculous that what can happen. And I haven't reached a crazy scale, but I think if I look back 3 years ago when I started and said, "Oh, in 3 years you're going to have 6 facilities," I go, "Holy crap! No way. There's no way I'm doing that." But then now I go, "Gosh, only six? We should have 50, right?" Because I think I see how every time we've taken on a new facility, it's been an easier onboard. And now we're at the point where I can just plug it in. The same customer service team is going to handle it. I just need one trustworthy person on the ground to handle locks and then any other contract.
H-
Yeah, it's a great business.
how do you find that person on the ground?
Oh man, we've just been really lucky. I think it all comes through relationships, right? There's a couple that's just been a huge blessing to us, and they were helping out prior owners on this one in Perryville, Missouri that we own, and we were just blessed that they wanted to keep on and help. And they don't need to do it. They don't. I don't think they need the money. They're just really good people, and they're retired, and it gives them something to take care of, and they're just awesome people. And then I've had some folks that are started out doing the lawn and landscape. And I'm like, "Hey, can you guys do lock checks and we'll pay X?" And that's worked out well. But typically, and retirees are just really trustworthy people. Not all, but right, like a majority of the folks that we've met, retirees, handyman types. I think the one thing I struggle with is so there's a certain profile of contractor that we have do clean outs, and they tend to be treasure hunters. And that
Mm,
the one check and balance that I make sure I have is I don't want the treasure hunter type person to have all the combinations to like our Da Vinci systems. I have to keep that separate. I think that's the one thing that if somebody's getting in the business, that could open you up for some real trouble is if you have a clean out contractor, I always have that separate from my lock person. Just I've just heard horror stories about, oh yeah, I thought this was a trustworthy guy, but for 18 months he's been opening up customer units and taking stuff. So we want to avoid that.
yeah, that's so I use the same system. I use a DaVinci, and I gave one of my contractors the login because he was accessing 18 units. So I didn't want to go and do that. So I need to go change my password. So I didn't think about
I just while he's doing the work, give him the login, or
Mhm.
it's easy enough to just give a list, like export it to Excel or a text message and say, "Hey, unit 12 is 1, 2, 3, 4. Unit 13 is this." If he's got 18 units, I just give him the list with the locks instead of have him log in. But that's just me. I'm paranoid. I'm on a Twitter group of storage operators, and there's a guy that there was a car that was taken, like the boots on the ground per their virtual assistant had, I'll speak in generalities too, but their virtual assistant had marked a unit as clean out. The boots on the ground person went, opened the unit up, saw like a classic car, like a very highly sought after car, sold it on goes, "Okay, this is a clean out unit." Sold it on Facebook Marketplace. And it was not, it was an error. It was like a
Mm,
unit 12 instead of unit 13, that kind of thing. So
yeah. I had something like that happen. I cut into a unit and there was like an old Corvette in there. And the lady hadn't paid us in months. And but I saw that and I was like, I called her again. I tried really hard to get a hold of her and finally did get a hold of her. And she's like, "Oh, I still want my units. I just didn't know who to pay." And I'm like, "All right." So we got all caught up and we're good. So her Corvette gets to stay at home where it belongs. Can you so tell me a little bit about some people that you lean on to get these storage deals done? How do you find deals?
so if you ask my wife, I just get lucky and they fall in my lap. But no, I think Hayden, it deals do tend to pop out of nowhere where you least expect them. And I like connecting with people, like what you're doing on this podcast, creating genuine connection. I've tried all sorts of things, but I think the best thing is just to lean in and help people. I've had a few deals come my way that were folks with questions on underwriting. I got a great one. Cape Girardeau facility. A gentleman reached out from one of mastermind I'm in, and he said, "Hey, I saw in your signature that you're into storage. I got this deal. I think it's a deal. I think this thing's going to auction. The banker gave me a tip. Love for you to look at it if you have time." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's look at it." So, like, I was actually in Colorado on a snowboard trip with my family, and my wife's like, "Who were you on the phone with for 2 hours?" I was like, "Oh, I was helping this GoBundance guy underwrite a storage deal." And I don't know that she was too impressed, but what ended up happening is we went down the path, he got it under contract, and then I ended up buying it from him with an assignment fee, like a six-figure assignment fee too. So it was we figured out a win-win for both, but that was one where there was a lot of work and a lot of moving parts. So the best course of action with the timeline that was in play was assignment fees. That was one that came that way. Another one. So my first deal actually is a fun story. A friend of mine approached me to do. So I was selling websites at one point. Like when I was unemployed, I could just whip up a WordPress website, and so I was doing that for small business owners. And then I got back into working, and right around that time, my friend Kelly that went and looked at those apartments, he pinged me. He said, "Hey, there's a guy that works for a mutual friend of ours that has a brain tumor, and he's got little kids, and those little kids are like, it's like a newborn." And then I forget the age, may have been 3 or something like that. Like my heart sank.
Mm.
And he said, "Hey, they're doing this benefit auction to help his family while they're going through all this stuff. And like they're posting these things on a Facebook group, and things are just getting lost." And he's like, "Do you think you could whip up a website for him?" I said, "Sure." So I whipped up a website, no charge, right? Just put some good into the universe. And the lady who organized that benefit, she had friended me on Facebook. We had been back and forth. I whipped the website up. It wasn't a big deal. Really wasn't a heavy lift on my end. I set it up to where she could upload all of her stuff. So it was a really easy win to get that done. But yeah, the lady who organized that she had connected with me on Facebook. And 6 months later, she posted up, "Hey, I'm getting into real estate, or I'm getting back into real estate. I just got my realtor's license again. If you are looking for any real estate, let me know. I'd love to help." So I sent her a message, say, "Hey, if you find any self-storage, I'm looking for self-storage." So a couple months go by, and she pings me, "Hey, are you still looking for self-storage?" And she brought me my first deal.
Mm.
And so that was just, you make a connection that's completely unrelated. You don't have a agenda or motive, but everybody you talk to just needs to know what you do.
Yeah.
And it's all a numbers game, right? So it's not, if you talk to people at I think I see this at the RIA meetings a lot, where it's like a shark in water. Like you can tell that somebody's coming to you and they have an ulterior motive.
Mm.
And I don't like that. So just connecting genuinely. And then there's guys that I go, "Oh, you know what? Pat, he buys houses in this area of town. I just saw one pop up. I'm going to send it over to him." And then I want to be the guy that they think of when I have a really wide net and I have a network always growing, but like people know, hey, it's in the Midwest, Rob will look at it and maybe buy it because I got stuff from Ohio to Kansas. So that's, yeah.
So when a deal comes across your desk, and so say it's like a house, like it's going to be a fix and flip. How deep do you go into that if it's not your expertise? Do you underwrite that deal to see if it's a good deal to send off to someone else, or what does your process look like on that?
It's not in my wheelhouse, but I know somebody else in my network may be interested. I may make a connection. Most of the stuff I see on Facebook, those kind of guys are gonna see the same things. But I can give you an example of, there's a local fix and flipper named Ian, and he was doing high volume. He's doing, I call it medium volume now. He's still doing probably 5 or 6 houses at a time, but not doing 150 houses a year. He's buying houses, and I know he's actively looking for houses. And I have another friend who's a realtor, and he was talking about, "Man, I've got this client, and I don't really know how to help her. She inherited a house that has a reverse mortgage on it." I'm like, "Hey, you need to just talk to Ian, because this is probably more of an invest." Because he said, "Hey, this house is trashed. It's going to go for way lower than comps in the area on MLS. Like it's going to be a tough one to help her exit this property. So I just suggested, hey, connect with Ian. I had introduced them at like a cocktail hour at one point. He goes, oh yeah, cool. Give me his contact info. So I'd rather just connect humans and not connect deals.
Mm.
And so if there's some synergies there, or if somebody, a friend of mine's talking about a problem and then somebody else is talking about something, I go, oh my gosh, that's a solution for this problem. Like I'll beep in, like my realtor friend, he was buying Zillow leads, and he's, oh, these leads are trash. At first they were good, and now they're sending me trash leads. And then I don't know, 2 weeks later, I'm on the phone with another guy talking about this VA company that for $1,400 a month, you pick some zip codes and then they just have cold caller calling for you. So I go, hold on. Do you mind if I beat my buddy in? I'd love for you to tell him about this, about what's working for you in Denver so he
Mhm.
can apply this in Kansas City. So I beeped him in, and like we talked for 3 minutes. Now my KC friend is using the, gosh, it's something crazy like lead or like lead monster, or I don't know. It's
Lead magnet.
some wild name, or lead animal. I don't know. It's some wild sounding name. And then he called me back. He goes, dude, this shit's working.
Huh.
I love that. And really, if you think about it, the more people you help, or the more connecting you can do for other people. Like I'm not the answer guy, but if there's two open-ended things here, like everybody win. And I love to see my friends succeed, and want to see people be successful. Realtors right now have the hardest freaking job. Most realtors are going to quit and go work at Applebee's, or maybe not Applebee's, but there's not enough transactions happening right now for the surge of realtors that came in. I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but it's going to be rough. And then you got the lawsuits and stuff. And anytime that you have somebody over here that's killing it, maybe in a different market or whatever, you can, hey, let's copy them, right?
Yeah, and just by making that connection, like maybe you got a small referral or something like that, but even if you didn't, like, what does it matter? It's you were able to
No
help your
referral. No.
and
But it's
that's
self-serving, right? Like at the end of the day, if you help people and you feel good, that's a dopamine hit. So
yeah.
why not? Like
When
you
that
could be addicted to
realtor
cocaine or to helping people.
I'm gonna have to put that one in the front. You can be addicted to cocaine or you can be addicted to helping people. I love that. It's one of those things that, like, you never know if that realtor, like, with this lead generation thing, like, what they may come across and the value it can provide for you later, but even if it doesn't, it's probably sound like a broken record if someone's listened to all of my episodes, but even if it doesn't work out, you still are winning because you help someone else win, and whenever the opportunity comes up, they're gonna think of you, and I love
Well,
that aspect of it.
it's gonna sound woo, but the energy comes back. Like there's an energy in the universe. It comes back. And I've called it the boomerang, because I'll just throw something out 'cause I don't care. I'm not looking for anything to come back. And then that son of a bitch hits me right upside the head. And that's seriously these deals. Like I laugh about it because I've literally, my wife's been like, yeah, gosh, I had this person ask me, where do you find your deals? I'm like, oh, you just get lucky. And I'm like, you're right. I do get lucky, but I've had friends correct me and they go, yeah, man, you get lucky, but you put yourself in a position to get lucky. Like,
Mm.
how much money did you spend going on trips last year for your mastermind, or the last 2 years for your mastermind, and never ask anybody for anything? Like, you're just putting yourself out there and helping people when you can. And yeah, you got to put yourself in a position to get lucky. And I think it's just by like literally building genuine connections and relationships far outweighs anything else.
And every time you invest into going to one of these trips, you learn something or you meet someone. I haven't been out to a single conference where I didn't meet someone or learn something. And if we're continually growing and learning, you continually uncover new opportunity.
Yeah, and one thing that was pitched that I never really grasped, it was like the power of an alumni network from college.
Mm.
And I never stayed in touch with anybody from college. But I can tell you, the people that I've grown with over the last few years, like, you're on this journey together. You don't know, you, just because there's no synergy today doesn't mean that you're not doing a deal in 10 years. You guys independently do your own thing. And then, like, my friend I mentioned earlier, Jason, he has another friend, and they've been on similar paths in life and known each other since like high school. And I think they're late 40s. but they have this thing going where they have some investments that are just straight up play money. They're like, hey, you want to go do this thing? Seems fun. And I think the last deal, like they've built up from just winning together on a couple different random things, like they buy equipment together or they'll buy properties together. And now it's just a game because they've gotten to the spot where whatever they have together doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, they're not living off of it. They're like, we're just going to keep it in the pot and keep having fun. And somebody wants to buy what we just got for profit. Let's go do something else fun with it and try to grow it. Right. So, but that's just doing cool shit with cool people, doing what you want, where you want, with who you want, that kind of thing.
So this is an interesting idea. Can you expound on the power of the alumni network?
Yeah. So, the alumni network, what it was pitched to me was like, you go to college and you're going to come out with people in your department or whatever. You're going to stay in touch. And then there's going to be all these job connections, et cetera. And I didn't feel like that panned out because I didn't put any energy into it. So now as I see it, and over time, I haven't done the burn the boats anywhere that I've been. And so over my professional life, there have been parallels or where you'll connect back in with somebody and have no idea that they have a need that you can help them with or vice versa. So I think it's more of building your own network, not necessarily saying, hey, I went to the X university because I love the idea that they pitch, but you don't have to pay 50 or 100 grand to build a network. You've got to go out and build your own. And so that's what we do in life, build our own network. So it's your job to maintain those relationships and also cut the ones that are going to suck your energy dry.
So what are some tools you use to go about creating new relationships with people?
I think I'm just when I just stay open to meeting new people and putting myself in places where I'm more likely to collide with like-minded people. If I went to the bar 4 nights a week and got hammered, I'd probably be colliding with people who were on that trajectory. So, like, for me, it's gonna be putting myself in rooms that other people are on this whatever part of a journey, but we've defined, hey, the X room is for people on X journey, right? So that's local meetups, that's regional masterminds or national masterminds or workshops. I think it's really just finding other people focused on going either where you want to go or people that have been there. Ultimately, if you can be like the least smart dude in the room, that's a good spot to be because you can rise to the level of the other guys. But also, if you're in that position, don't bullshit everybody and try to show everyone that you've made it because ultimately nobody gives a shit, right?
Right.
Like they want to see you. And honestly, if you're real and you go, hey, you know what? We talked about your journey and where you're at, and it's like you're in the journey. But if you came to me and presented like, hey, yeah, man, I'm do X, Y, Z, and did all bluff numbers, which some guys do, and then come to find out later, you're like, oh, actually, I'm just getting started. Like the things you told me, where it's, yeah, man, I just getting started. I got a key partner that's a majority, blah, 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 blah. That's authentic. But if you bullshitted me and said, hey, yeah, this, and, it, it doesn't work.
And with using your shark, and you can always smell you can smell it. Not always, but most of the time, you can smell it when someone's just trying to puff up their ego and say that they've got all this stuff going on. And I'll be the first person to tell you I'm learning every single day. Like this morning I was in the gym and like I saw on my phone it came across that my microphones have shipped. So I like jumped for joy because I was like, I've got my little lavalier mics coming so I can make better social media content. And I'm like, I am literally like a little baby, little infant learning to crawl with all this stuff. But it's fun, man. That's something that I've had to learn with all the amazing and smart people that I've met is you need to enjoy the journey more than the mountaintop. Like you've got to learn to love the hike because if you
Yeah.
love the mountaintop, you've got to go and climb back down after it. There's always another taller mountain.
Yeah. So I'll give you a spoiler. Like the $1 million net worth is just so anticlimactic that it's just reassuring. Reaffirms what you just said, where it's about the climb and the journey. And I've had people say like, hey, you're good with your cash flow and you guys can live pretty good. And so why do you keep going? fun, right? Like, why not?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of being on the journey. So another thing though is it's being on the journey, staying on the journey, not losing what you have built. But I think the other part of it is not to get caught up in the personal development loop of inaction, right? So you just gotta actually do something. And you can go to all the masterminds in the world and you can go to take all the online classes and talk about it and listen to all the podcasts and books, et cetera. And at the end of the day, if you don't take action, like you're completely wasting your time. And I think there's a lot people trying to find an identity as an entrepreneur or a real estate investor, but they need to really look deep. Is this what I want? Does this align with my skill set or am I chasing a shiny object? Because it seemed like it was from the outside looking in, it was like crypto and then it was real estate and now it's buying businesses. And there's just a lot of themes I see in the social media or like guru space where there's just like these trends, like self storage got super hot for a minute. And then now I think a lot of the people who haven't purchased a facility are like, gosh, I just can't make the numbers work. Nothing on market works without a 40 to 50% down payment. Just doesn't work. And then on those on market deals, your cash on cash is going to be crap. It just is what it is with financing. The ones that are going to win right now are direct seller, helping people with true motivation, figure out a creative solution to the problem, figuring out seller financing, creating wins on both sides. But yeah, that's squirreled on a couple different things there. But I think that you can get lost trying to, if you're not focused on one thing. So when people ask, what's your one thing? It's storage. I'm not going to go buy apartments, townhomes, or fix and flips right now. Occasionally we talk about, hey, maybe if we got some single family rentals or short-term rental somewhere cool. And every single time I talk myself out of it.
Yeah, no, great. When people ask what my one thing is, I say I've got a few one things. You got storage, got the podcast, got the real estate meetup. So it definitely like when you have an entrepreneurial head, you always get pulled into these different directions and want to do more and add more to the plate and just but I'm seeing it right now in my life. It's as I add more and more things to the plate, you get more and more spread out and less focus on like the target. So I think
Yeah, but
that's
if they're complementary, then it can be a positive, right? So if your podcast leads to being intentional and building a network, and then that's in storage doesn't have to be your one thing. Like you mentioned Ben Call, that you had interviewed him and you were on our podcast. So his one thing is like commercial real estate. There's a lot of different little facets, right? I'm very niche down, but he crushes it in storage and other stuff in real estate, multifamily, building townhomes. But your one thing can be, it's all different for everybody. But if you
yeah.
told me that you were a Bitcoin miner that was buying laundromats, self storage, and podcasting and selling courses, I go, holy shit! Like what? How do you have enough time to do all of that? Right?
How do you do all of it well is the best question too. Is I feel like we look at these entrepreneurs, like you look at Elon Musk, he's got the Boring Company, he's got Tesla, he's got SpaceX, all of these, they're not really complementary almost at all. When you really look at it, I mean, rockets and cars, maybe the similarity is they both got some sort of propulsion, but that's about it. And we look up to these people and don't think about how they have teams running everything. It's like they built that. They probably started with one thing, one focus, and they did that really well. And then that freed up the time to be able to focus on other things. So I always try to remember as I'm making connections with people because I'm always out meeting new people and hearing what they're doing and how their business works. It's like, that's really cool. Maybe one day. But right now I need to focus on what I need to focus on.
So that's Elon Musk has the power of zeros and commas behind him, right? So he can be he's the highest level visionary that I think I'm aware of today, where I want to do, and I don't know what his official vision is, but I want to do things to save this planet. And if we can't, I want to way out, right? Like populate Mars. But it's, yes, like you said, the scale, you got to have all the people in place to, when you're dealing with how big's your storage facility?
75 units.
Okay, so 75 units doesn't pay for the whole C-suite, executives, directors, middle management, and grunt labor. That's the one thing I'm learning with storage is if it actually is, getting easier the more doors I have, the more I can pay people to do the things that feel heavy, and they can focus on their one thing. Like, I have customer service reps, their one thing is answer the phone. They have 2 things: answer the phone and follow up on customer issues, including payment issues, but, like, that makes life pretty simple for them. But, like, you are wearing many hats right now, right? So you're answer the phone, boots on the ground, contract coordinator. So this is your learn, because if you get to 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 doors, and you're like, "Cool, I know the job." That's ultimately like we were talking about on our podcast. You bootstrap it. You gotta learn every single role before you delegate it. So,
I love it. So we've come up on our time here. I want to ask you my final question. I ask this to a lot of my guests. And the question is, can you think of a person or maybe a group of people that you connected with and really leaned into that changed your outlook on your business or your life?
okay. Yeah, so a group of people. I joined GoBundance 2 years ago, and I had already bought a storage facility, and I thought that what I had done was pretty substantial. And part of that group, they do like a one sheet exercise where you go through and you look at everything from your financials to your physical health, your body fat, you assess your relationships, etc. And I thought I was joining that group to learn how to make more money, because one of the founders of the group is worth almost $200 million now. So you're like, okay, cool. Like, these dudes got some cash. I'm going to learn how to make more cash. Ultimately, in that first time when those looked at my one sheet with a group of guys, they checked me on all the areas of life except for the financial, right? I didn't feel like I was doing, like, near my potential on financial, but they're like, "Oh, you have a goal that says I want to improve my relationship with my wife. I want to be present with my kids." And that really helped me understand that those were all bullshit goals, and that you need to write goals that are measurable, like SMART goals, right? My focus, I think, from that point on was like, let's design this life with intentionality, and the growth in the business just happens. I have to fit that in my life. Here's my life, and I'm going to insert the business in it, versus I'm going to focus on my business, and then my kids are going to grow up, and then they're not going to know their dad. They're going to have these stories about how I was gone all the time, et cetera, or not present. So I think for me, that was the biggest thing, was like, pull back off of the business a little bit and go, okay. And through that also, it's helped me grow and pull my ego back and say, this is something somebody else can do. Somebody can help me with this. This is a role where I can do well in. This type of work feels light for me. This other type of work feels heavy. It might be something simple like answering the phone,
Mm,
right? That was a big stressor in my life, because we went to Hawaii, and then I had 5 missed calls when I woke up because of the time difference, and they were all customers with issues. Like, how do you relax on a Hawaiian vacation with your family when you just missed 5 calls? You're the only one running your business. Like, it was silly. So I think that was a pretty pivotal moment there. And that also, getting around that group of guys helped me to remove limiting beliefs, think bigger, see a bigger picture than where my head was at. Cause I probably would be cool with just that one storage facility and have the thing paid off and then just live off the money. And then now it's the growth journey for me that's fun, is finding exciting deals, putting systems in place and people in place, make all the work that I do feel like. So,
I love it. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And
yeah.
where should people find you if they want to follow your journey or have questions?
Yeah. Instagram's probably the best place to connect. It's at Rob DuBroc. So ROBDUBROC, or at Storage Academy. And we have a podcast coming out. Storage Academy is the name. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to get connected with all the other stuff.
All right. Awesome, Rob. Thank you again for coming on. And hopefully we get to do some deals together sometime. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Love it.
All right. See you soon.